Hello friends, welcome to session 7. It's titled Joining the Dots. Okay, we have several interesting things to talk about in this session, so let's get started. Okay. The last time we talked about an assignment, and the assignment was to go to any job portal and check out AI related jobs. Okay, so you were supposed to go to some job portal and see what kind of jobs are available for AI professionals. In session 1, we had asked a question, what will be our role or relevance in an AI-driven world? And this assignment was sort of a way to address that question. तो हमने हमारे पहले सेशन में एक सवाल पूछा था कि AI ड्रिवन वर्ल्ड में हम क्या करेंगे, तो हमारे लिए किस टाइप के जॉब्स अवेलेबल होंगे, तो इसलिए मैंने ये असाइनमेंट आपको दिया था. Okay, so the jobscape, I mean, like landscape, I have sort of coined this word, the jobscape, and it shows you the broad areas in which AI professionals can find employment. Okay, so broadly three categories. Broadly, there is a category of jobs in the overall area of data collection or data cleaning. Okay, because training data is so important in the overall AI model, right? And then there are jobs available in data sciences, right, where you want to visualize data, make sense out of the data. There are jobs that involve creating different models or algorithms, and then there are also jobs that require you to do implementations or deployment of these models in various industries, right? So broadly तीन तरह के jobs आज आपको देखने मिलते हैं. एक टाइप के जॉब्स वो है जहां आप ट्रेनिंग डेटा बनाने में काम करते हो, फिर अल्गोरिथम्स या डेटा साइंसिस में काम करते हो, या फिर आपके मॉडल्स आपके इंडस्ट्री में डिप्लॉय करने के काम भी हो सकते हैं. तो ये तीनों थोड़े से हम डिटेल में देखेंगे. लेट्स गो ओवर सम ऑफ द डिटेल्स हियर. Okay, so data gathering and data labeling, like we discussed, training data is a super important component of the overall AI framework, right? And therefore data gathering and collection of data is an important task in itself. Data labeling means bringing the raw data into a form that can be used to train a model, right? So these are important jobs, and typically they would be designated as, you know, a data collector, a data abstractor, a data labeler, and so on and so forth. And you would be looking at public or private data sets or even collect data from the field. Now these jobs require you to have some amount of domain expertise. So for example, if you are collecting medical data, you would need to know something about that profession or something about what sort of data is being gathered. So it is not it's not an entirely unskilled activity. You need to have some amount of domain expertise to be an effective data gatherer or a labeler. ओके, तो ट्रेनिंग डेटा तैयार करने में काफ़ी सारे जॉब्स रहते हैं, और आपको शायद डेटा कलेक्टर या डेटा एब्स्ट्रैक्टर कहा जाता है. और यहाँ फील्ड कलेक्शन भी होता है, और जो अवेलेबल डेटा सेट्स है उसमें से भी डेटा एक्सट्रैक्ट करने का काम हो सकता है. आगे चल के डेटा एनालिसिस और डेटा साइंसिस के जॉब्स हो सकते हैं, जहां हमें डेटा विजुअलाइज करना पड़ता है. डेटा एनालिस्ट का रोल हो सकता है, डेटा साइंटिस्ट का रोल हो सकता है, और यहां आप टूल्स जैसे टैबलो या माइक्रोसॉफ्ट टूल्स है वो आप इस्तेमाल करते हैं. थोड़ा सा प्रोग्रामिंग भी आपको करना पड़ता है. सो इन द रोल ऑफ डेटा साइंटिस्ट और डेटा एनालिस्ट, your primary task is to analyze and make sense of the data, visualize the data, and you often end up working with available tools. I've given examples of Tableau and Microsoft tools. You also need to do some amount of programming. The other type of jobs involve building AI models or developing algorithms, right? So creating trainable models for solving a problem. And here your designation would typically be a research scientist or an AI engineer, an NLP engineer, natural language processing. and you would be extensively programming in Python or R or other languages, and probably also using some of these publicly available frameworks like Spacey, NLTK. You can go and look up what these are. Okay, तो अगर आपका काम मॉडल्स डेवलप करना या अल्गोरिथम्स लिखना हो तो आपका डेसिग्नेशन शायद रिसर्च साइंटिस्ट या एआई इंजीनियर हो सकता है. यहाँ आपको काफ़ी प्रोग्रामिंग का नॉलेज होना ज़रूरी है, और आप शायद पब्लिकली अवेलेबल फ्रेमवर्क्स जो है जैसे स्पेसी, एनएलटीके, वो भी आप इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं. तो ये होता है बिल्डिंग मॉडल्स एंड एल्गोरिथम्स. Implementation and deployment. Okay, now this is a big category and I want to talk about it in a little bit of detail. So here what you do is you are probably not working in an IT company, but you are probably working in the IT department of a manufacturing company or a financial services company, or FMCG or some other sector, but the IT department of a different type of a company. And here your job is to firstly identify AI solvable problems in your organization. Okay, and then continuing that process, identify, experiment with and identify suitable AI models, and finally create solutions that work based on finding training sets, etc., etc. So here you are identifying AI problems within your organization and trying to solve them with different models. So this is the implementation and deployment type of jobs that are available in various companies. तो अगर आप किसी और कंपनी में मैन्युफैक्चरिंग या बैंकिंग या फाइनेंस में काम करते हो तो आपके ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के अंदर ऐसे कौन से प्रॉब्लम्स है जो एआई से सॉल्व हो सकते हैं, ये आपको देखना पड़ता है और उसके लिए सॉल्यूशंस आपको डेवलप करने पड़ते हैं. इसके बारे में मैं थोड़ा सा और बताना चाहता हूँ. आई वांट टू टॉक अ लिटिल बिट मोर अबाउट दिस सॉर्ट ऑफ जॉब्स. ओके, broadly there are three types of AI solutions in any industry. Okay, firstly are the solutions that enhance human efficiency. Okay, so a person is working on a particular task and you want to sort of aid him or her by creating AI assist solutions that will make that person more productive or enhance that person's efficiency. So for example, optical character recognition or OCR is an example of a solution that enhances human efficiency. Then there are solutions that try to entirely replace humans. So jobs that are being done by humans today are going to be replaced. I mean, machines are going to be replacing humans entirely. So for example, bots, right? Robots on a factory assembly line, or chatbots, right? So they replace humans entirely. This is the second type of solution. And the third type of solutions are those where you do things that humans cannot do. So perhaps deeper analysis into big data to find patterns that it's impossible for humans to find. So these are broadly three type of solutions in an industry. And based on my experience, it's always, if you're beginning, if you're just getting started, it's better to focus on this one, rather than going to 2 or 3. So it's always a good idea to begin by trying to develop solutions that bring an incremental efficiency to existing processes, because that's a low-hanging fruit. It's the easiest of the three to do. And I'm a big believer of the fact that if you are starting off something, your first project should end in a success. Okay, I'm a big believer of that fact, because that brings new energy to you, that helps you develop your understanding, and that generally helps you get along. So if your first project ends in a failure, I mean, it kind of, gives you a setback. So therefore, if you are just starting, my suggestion would be that you focus on solutions that enhance human efficiency. And then once you get settled in, you can look at problems of type 3 and then perhaps leave problems of type 2 for the last. Okay. So, अगर आप इंडस्ट्री में काम करते हो तो किसी इंसान की एफिशिएंसी इम्प्रूव करने के जो प्रॉब्लम्स होते हैं उन पे अगर आप पहले ध्यान दें तो वो सबसे आसान होते हैं. तो आप अगर उन पे पहले ध्यान दें तो वो आपके लिए ठीक रहता है. सो दिस इज इम्पॉर्टेंट. पिक योर बैटल्स. ओके, यू डोंट वांट टू सॉर्ट ऑफ take a very difficult problem as your first assignment and then sort of see it go haywire. Okay, so to sort of recap what we just spoke about, the AI ecosystem provides a variety of opportunities for professionals depending upon interests and abilities. तो आपके interests और abilities जिस type के हो उस type के jobs आपको industry में available होते हैं. ओके जैसा कि आपने देखा, डेटा ट्रेनिंग, डेटा बनाने के जॉब्स होते हैं, इम्प्लीमेंटेशन डिप्लॉयमेंट के जॉब्स रहते हैं, या मॉडल से एल्गोरिथम डेवलपमेंट के जॉब्स रहते हैं. सो दीज आर द थ्री ब्रॉड कैटेगरीज ऑफ जॉब्स दैट यू आर लाइकली टू फाइंड बेस्ड ऑन योर इंटरेस्ट एंड एबिलिटीज. Okay, well, this is going to be the last session in our introductory series. Okay, there will be more sessions, but this is the last session of our introductory series. Okay, and what I want to do is basically recap or summarize what we have learned, and how and why. Okay, how and why. So these lectures were designed in a particular way, in a particular sequence, and I want all of us to be on the same page in terms of our understanding of what we have learned and how we have done it and why we have done it in a particular fashion. So I want to go over that exercise now. Okay, I call this rewiring. So you may be a student with with fantastic ambitions in life, or you may be a professional who's looking to implement AI solutions, or you may just be somebody who is curious about technology. No matter what, learning about AI and ML requires you to sort of think about things a little bit differently. Okay, so that's why I call this rewiring. It requires you to sort of reorient your thought process just a little bit. Okay, slightly different from other subjects that you've probably been studying. For example, here you are not instructing a machine what to do. I mean, this would be an expert system, right? Like we said, this would be an expert system. Here you're not instructing a machine what to do, but you are sort of developing a machine or enabling a machine to find a solution based on examples that you give it. So this is, this is a different sort of a problem that you're dealing with from your traditional problem of, where you may be sort of writing a program to do some mathematical computation or sorting an array of numbers. Exactly, you exactly give instructions to the machine and expect it to implement this. Here you have to think a little bit differently, because you are going to create models, you are going to create programs which will enable the machine to learn based on examples. So you have to think in terms of the training data, you have to think in terms of the model, and you have to sort of think a little bit differently. So this is for example one difference in the traditional way of thinking versus the sort of thinking that's required in AI/ML. Very important, there is no right answer. Okay, there is no right answer, but there are good or better answers. Okay, so traditionally in many subjects you kind of think in terms of the right answer, the other answers are wrong answers. Here you are lucky to find a good answer. There is always a better or an even better answer. Okay, so sort of being on this scale is what happens. Instead of there being a 0 or 1, instead of a right and a wrong, you are sort of on a analog scale of good, better, etc. Right? So you sort of to get used to that idea, and then you often run into sort of what you would think is non-intuitive behavior. Okay, so you have to reconcile with some of this non-intuitive behavior like we saw in an earlier session. So this is what I mean by rewiring. So we have to come to terms with all of these things, and that sort of helps us be better AI or ML professionals or grasp the subject in a better manner. तो कुछ चीज़ें AI ML में थोड़ी सी अलग होती है. हम यहाँ मशीन्स को ट्रेन करते हैं एग्जाम्पल्स दे के. यहाँ कोई सही या गलत जवाब नहीं होता है, यहाँ गुड, बेटर, बेहतर जवाब होते हैं. और इस तरीके से हमारे थोड़े से सोचने के तरीके में थोड़ा सा बदलाव लाने की ज़रूरत होती है. तो ये हमने करने की थोड़ी सी कोशिश की है यहाँ. सो हाउ डिड वी गो अबाउट दिस टास्क? call this joining the dots. We began by sort of understanding what AI and ML was, and sort of emphasizing the fact that in AI ML, you basically develop a model that learns from data, that identifies patterns based on data, on the basis of which it can make certain predictions and so on. Okay, as an example of an AI problem, we looked at classification or prediction. So this was an example of a AI problem. Classification basically meant predicting the class or category of an input based on what we know about that input. So we took this problem as an example of an AI problem. Okay, an example of a problem where you could construct a model or models that would learn on the basis of training data. We took that as an example. We then proceeded to learn about performance metrics. Okay, performance metrics that would be useful to evaluate our solutions to this classification problem. Okay, performance metrics. Remember, I said that there is no right or wrong, but there is good and there is better and there is even better. So if that is the case, the first thing that you need to have are performance metrics, right? Evaluation parameters based on which you can actually determine whether something is better than something else, right? So even before you begin to develop those models, you have to know what metrics you are going to use for evaluating a particular solution. So that's why we sort of spend some time learning about things like precision, recalls, false positives, false negatives, so on and so forth. Okay, that was what we did next. Then we spent a lot of time on training data. Okay, we spent a lot of time on training data. This was very important. I mean, if your models were going to learn on the basis of training data, clearly the quality, the completeness, the balance of your training data was going to be extremely important. And therefore, we spent a lot of time on how training data is supposed to be gathered, how it is supposed to be iteratively used, and so on and so forth, right? So training data was front and center of one of our sessions. Having set the stage with performance metrics, with training data, so on and so forth, we then proceeded to look at a learning model. Okay, and for the classification problem, we looked at what is known as the Bayesian model, which is based on conditional probabilities. So we learned this concept of conditional probabilities, and we looked at what a Bayesian model is for classification or prediction based on conditional probabilities. So this was one of the AI models that we learned about. We also learned about another AI model, which was the KNN, K nearest neighbor model, which basically relied on the concept of distance as opposed to probabilities. Okay, so relied on a different concept, the concept of distance, and this was another AI model that we sort of looked at to solve the classification problem. Why did we take the classification problem as an example to go through this loop? Because classification problems are many, and we are frequently confronted with their manifestations. So for example, you want to predict whether a stock is going to go up or down tomorrow. That would be an example of a classification problem. Or for example, if you wanted to categorize the severity of an illness or the grade of an illness based on scans, that would be an example of classification problem. There are many others, and therefore it's a good problem to sort of help us get through this entire cycle of an AI ML problem. That's the reason why we took the classification problem as an example. So this is where we are. So today, if you are in a position where you are comfortable with the fact that a machine can actually learn from training data, then you are in a good place. Okay, so if you are comfortable with this fact, if you understood a Bayesian model as an example of an AI model, or KNN as an example of an AI model, if you understood the importance of training data, and if you understood what performance metrics to use in the context of classification, of course, then you are in a good place. That was the purpose of this introductory series. So the big picture, putting things together with specific example of a classification problem or a prediction problem as an example. Okay, so this is exactly what we have done. तो हमने क्या किया है इस पिछले 6 सेशंस में, हमने AI ML क्या होता है इसके बारे में जानकारी ली है, जहां एक आध AI मॉडल डेटा से सीखता है, ओके, डेटा से सीखता है। और क्लासिफिकेशन प्रॉब्लम का हमने एग्जाम्पल लिया था, जिसमें हमने रिकॉल और प्रेसिजन जैसे टर्म्स देखे, जिसके बदौलत हम एक क्लासिफिकेशन सिस्टम और दूसरी क्लासिफिकेशन सिस्टम को कंपेयर कर सकते हैं। हमने ट्रेनिंग डेटा का महत्व देखा, ट्रेनिंग डेटा काफ़ी महत्वपूर्ण होता है, तो हमने उसका महत्व देखा और उसे कैसे यूज़ करना है वो भी देखा। और हमने 2 टाइप के मॉडल्स के बारे में सीखा। एक तो था बेजियन मॉडल, जहां हमने प्रोबेबिलिटी के तौर पे डिसीजंस कर लिए, और दूसरा था KNN, जहां हमने डिस्टेंस का इस्तेमाल किया। तो इस प्रकार से हमने एक क्लासिफिकेशन प्रॉब्लम लेके उसके परफॉर्मेंस मैट्रिक्स, ट्रेनिंग डेटा का इम्पोर्टेंस और 2 टाइप के लर्निंग मॉडल्स हमने देख लिए हैं। तो अगर आपको ये चीज़ें समझ में आई है तो हम काफ़ी बेहतर जगह पे है, ऐसा हम कह सकते हैं। Okay. I just want to say that, we looked at, in this session, we also looked at what kind of jobs are available in the industry, because industry is it's itself tells you a lot. Where is the requirement, what is valuable, so on and so forth. So that's the other reason you need to look at what jobs are there in the industry. So you have seen all the kind of jobs that are available. Note that there is no job that requires you to rattle off definitions of various terms. Okay, so for that reason I have stayed away from giving you 150 different definitions of 150 different terms. Okay, so I have stayed away from that. Our focus has been to learn concepts, okay, and internalize concepts, or understand concepts in a easy, relatable manner. That has been the focus of our exercise. Okay, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? That's the next question. Okay, the way forward. And to understand the way forward, I would like you to think in terms of problems on one hand and tools on the other. Okay, problems on one hand and tools on the other. So what do I mean? Classification was a problem that we looked at, right? A problem that that occurs often in your professional work. Okay, so an important category of problems that are solved by AI. We looked at the classification problem. Similarly, there are other problems you may run into. Clustering, for example, grouping elements of a large set into self-similar groups, right? So clustering. NLP, right? So natural language processing, problems that deal with language, interpretation of language, understanding, so on and so forth, right? Speech recognition, whatever. So these are various problems that can be solved with AI, right? On the other hand, what you have is a bag, okay? I call this the bag of tools, and what it really contains are ideas and concepts, and you walk around with this bag in your mind all the time, right? So these ideas and concepts are in your mind, and you walk around with this bag of tools. And so far what we have done is we have put 2 such tools in your bag. Okay, so one tool or one idea was the idea of probability, right, that we studied. Then the other idea was the idea of distance that we studied, right? So these 2 ideas or concepts are already a part of your bag of tools. Okay, now think of yourselves as a carpenter or a plumber, right? So what does a carpenter do? Let's say he's asked to build a table, right, or a chair or a bookshelf, so on. So the first thing he does is he analyzes what needs to be done, right? And he's carrying his bag of tools around all the time, and then once he understands what needs to be done, he picks up the suitable combination of tools from his bag to solve that particular problem or to construct that table, right? So he first understands the problem, and then because he has these tools in his bag, and because he knows how to use these tools, he is able to pick the right tools to complete the assignment that is given to him. Now, one tool may be used to solve multiple problems, right? So one tool may be a part of the solution for multiple problems. Similarly, multiple tools may be a part of the solution for a single problem, right? So it's a many to many relationship, right? So you can use a combination of these tools to attack a particular problem. But at the end of the day, what you have with you are these ideas, concepts, tools, as I call them, and you're going to use these, or you have to figure out which of these to use to solve a problem that the world throws at you. Okay, so this is the way I would sort of like you to think about this. There could be other problems, right? I mean, computer vision, regression, generative AI, so on and so forth. There are many different type of problems. And on conversely, there are, other tools. So LMS, least mean squares, linear regression, k-means, neural networks, Markov models. I mean, these are tools, right? These are also different ideas and concepts, and we need to start adding these tools to your bag. Okay, so it's important to start adding these tools to your bag. Okay, so we need to understand what these are. What I mean is we need to understand what each of these things are, what these concepts are, how to utilize them, so that when confronted with a problem, you know which of these tools to pick and choose, in what sequence, in what manner, to build the best possible solution you can for that particular problem. Okay, so this is going to be our way forward. Our way forward is going to be to add more and more tools to your bag of tools. Add more and more ideas and concepts to your bag of tools. That's going to be the way forward. Okay, तो हमने क्लासिफिकेशन का प्रॉब्लम जो देखा, उसे सॉल्व करने के लिए हमारे पास दो आइडियाज़ थी. एक आइडिया तो डिस्टेंस का आइडिया था, दूसरा आइडिया तो प्रोबेबिलिटी का आइडिया था. और जैसे कोई मिस्त्री या प्लम्बर काम करता है, उसके पास एक बैग होता है जिसमें टूल्स रहते हैं. अगर कोई उसको प्रॉब्लम मिलता है तो वो पहले प्रॉब्लम अंडरस्टैंड करता है और फिर उसके बैग में से सही औजार निकाल के वो प्रॉब्लम का सल्यूशन दे देता है. तो उसी तरह से हमें भी ऑपरेट करना है. हमारे बैग में ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा आइडियाज़ और कंसेप्ट्स हमको डालने हैं. उनके बारे में उनका इस्तेमाल ठीक तरह से करना हमें जानना है, और फिर हम ये बैग लेके इधर उधर घूम सकते हैं और जो प्रॉब्लम हमको दिखाई दे उसे सॉल्व कर सकते हैं. सो दैट इज़ द वे फॉरवर्ड. ओके. This guy has been accompanying us through our short journey of 6-7 sessions. His name is Zuzu, okay, and he's a wise owl who has sort of kept an eye on us. This is the last session in the introductory series. What we have next is an intermediate series. I am going to come up with an intermediate series which will cover some of the ideas, concepts that we just discussed. They are slightly more involved compared to what we have already done, but I'll do my best to explain them in a simple, relatable manner. And of course, like I said, this guy Zuzu will keep an eye on us. तो अगली हमारी सीरीज इंटरमीडिएट सीरीज रहेगी. वहाँ हमने जैसे देखा न्यूरल नेटवर्क्स, मार्कov मॉडल्स, के मीन्स वगैरह, ये जो आइडियाज़ है वो हम डिस्कस करेंगे. तो मैं वो सेशंस जल्दी ही बनाऊंगा. आप मुझे फॉलो कर सकते हैं, सब्सक्राइब कर सकते हैं. तो जब वो सेशंस आ जाएंगे आपको पता चलेगा. नोटिफिकेशंस भी ऑन रखिए. So do subscribe and keep your notifications enabled so that you know when these next set of videos are released. Okay, so I have enjoyed enormously creating this introductory series for you. मुझे बहुत खुशी हुई ये series बनाने में, and I hope you enjoyed this introductory series as well. If you have any comments for me, please put them in your comments, and I hope to see you soon. So thank you, goodbye, धन्यवाद.